Welcome to another enriching episode of the Men After God podcast, the resource for those passionate about leading and growing impactful men's ministries. Today, we'll dive into strategies, share insights, and discuss tools to help you inspire and guide the men in your church and community. Let's embark on this journey together to build stronger ministries and foster authentic brotherhood among men.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Men After God podcast. We are back, and I didn't say another week. I'm very happy about that. That's what I usually open up with, right? Luke here knows.
Yeah, let's triple your pay. It's triple your pay.
Yes, I
Still
get raised. Yeah. It's so true. It hurts. Oh my gosh. Yes, man. All right. Hey, today, guys, we are talking about engaging men and how we can have strategies for outreach and inclusion. Too often, Luke, men feel disconnected from the church. Have you been experiencing that as you've stepped into your men's ministry role there?
I think that, yeah, absolutely. We see this. I've seen it. I've watched it. I've been it where, I don't know, the ladies are so effective and the men aren't there. Like it's like we have ladies teas and ladies fellowships and ladies this and they do it so well, and they do it so beautifully in how they engage each other and are there for each other in a lot of ways. And I know that there's flaws in there too, I'm sure. But then you look at the men's ministry and there's 5 or 6 men participating in a random coffee shop experience, and that's what we call a men's ministry. And you're like, well, where's the rest of the men? Well, we don't know, but they're not there. They're not engaged. And so great point of conversation today.
Yeah. I don't know where they are. I just know they're not here. And man, it's a church-wide, Big C church-wide problem. Barna Group in 2022 put out that only 39% of church attendees are men. You know, one interesting thing I heard, Luke, was that when it comes to the design of churches and the interior design, most of the time, those decisions are left up to ladies. So the churches are designed with ladies in mind, which is unappealing for a man to be there. I've seen churches seeking to really switch that up and utilizing not just gray tones like overall, but the gray and black, or they really make it appeal to that 28 to 45-year-old man, and they're seeing success with their men attending there. That's one simple change that I think we need to take into consideration. Luke, is there a reason you think that guys, pastors, ministry leaders, hear something like that and have a negative thought towards like, well, no, we're not doing that, or it should be more, or they should get over it? What do you think drives that?
I think a lot of it is that the way I was raised, it was that the ladies were creative and better at that kind of stuff than the guys. And so I think it comes down to, so I'm going to say this before we go further in this. If your church is made up of a lot of great decorum and all that, we're not dissing your church or your ministry. No. And if you're a lady, I know some high quality design experts. Rachel Reed in California works with church design, does a great job. So we're not saying that a lady's opinion doesn't cater to men. A lot of times, if you go in some of the churches from the 70s and 80s, and again, there's a timestamp there, you're going to see a lot of flowery decorations, a lot of super different, not conservative colors. And you say, well, does it matter? No, lift Christ up and people are going to draw nigh to him. Like there's a thing there, but I do think it comes down to like, hey, if we can do a simple change, whether it be the color of our paint or the kind of decoration, not that a church needs to be decorated, to make it more appealing, so that when an unsaved man comes in or a saved man comes in that is just trying to find a place where they belong, that they feel like this is where they can stay and like, oh, this makes sense. And you're and in that process, you're not pushing away other people. You're just making it more inviting for individuals that are looking for a place to belong.
I think that's great. And you're talking about looking for a place to belong. For me, I think some of the feedback I can get when I have some of these discussions is, the men should be more spiritual. It shouldn't matter if there's flowers on it or this, that, and other. And look, I'm not going to disagree with you. Okay. We're not talking about the spiritual strength or spiritual maturity of a man. What we're talking about is creating a warm and welcoming environment where people can feel comfortable and connected. The aesthetics of a building, should it matter? No. No, and then we can tell stories all we want from David Platt's book Radical and the various different things he's got going on of underground churches and Christians suffering and all these things. That those arguments are for the churches that are full of followers of Jesus, arguing, debating, and splitting over the color of carpet. Yeah, they need to be more mature. But we're talking about the overall feel of when a person walks into the ministry, and is it welcoming and inviting? Can a change in paint color? Hey, if I remove this pink pansies, that's a flower, right? That's not just an insult we use on people. Okay, great. If we move these pink pansies or paisleys, whatever they are, out of the way, and replace it with maybe a rugged cross or something, a great men's brand symbol, whatever, if we put something like
Dustin
that
is
there.
pointing at his hat. If you're not watching the YouTube,
I'm sorry.
Has his branded Men After God hat.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, I was definitely pointing at my hat. Sorry, I was shooting video content before Luke and I got on here, so I'm used to just talking to the camera right now. So to our guys listening, to definitely a Men After God logo there. Those simple little changes just to show. It's not to show, hey, we're anti-women. It's to show, hey, we're here for the men. This is part of it. So it's creating that environment because we exist, Luke, in a post-Christian culture. Now, I understand there's some of you that don't like to hear that. There's some of you that can get upset over me even saying that. Or you may be in the deep, deep South and look around and say, look, me, Billy Bob, and Susie Q, we are still Christian, so it ain't post-Christian. You hear me? All right, fine. That's you. But I can tell you from the New England perspective, we are in a post-Christian culture. How are we reaching men? How are we engaging men in a post-Christian society? We have to take small things in consideration, like the decor and different things like that, because those are some barriers to getting guys in. There's some other common obstacles, Luke. What do you got for us?
I think just to go back, just to hover on that for just a second, and like the decor and the concept, I think take away whether it be more feminine or more manly or whatever, and just go back to say, when you walk in a church that hasn't been updated since the 60s, 70s, 80s, even early 90s, you can date it. You can literally, when it happened, and that, and in your mind, if you're all into the upgrade and like keeping up with trends. I'm not saying we need to keep up with trends, but you can see the churches where you walk and say, this church was built in the 70s. This church was designed after the 80s, or whatever it is, based on maybe even carpet color. And even if they've changed the carpet, the paneling, the organ, again, not against an organ, not against a lot of different things. This is not an against session by any means, but the concept is, if you're set up in a scenario where somebody that's walking into it is going to be like, oh man, I feel like I'm going back in time, or I'm going into I'm going into a nursing home. That's not a good vibe for a relevant church. And again, I'm not about the trends, but I'm about, hey, what is the best and most effective way to get men engaged in your local ministry? That's the conversation today. So if you took away anything but that, then please re-listen to it and laugh and then move on. So
absolutely. And think about this, Luke, before you jump into it, because you made a great point. Blockbuster didn't keep up with trends. Blockbuster didn't stay ahead of the game and I say attractional to their customers, if you will. And again, the arguments can be made. Well, the church doesn't have to be attractional. No, Christ is attractional. The gospel is attractional. I hear that. And that you have to get the opportunity to introduce them to Jesus. And if you're turning them away with your pink pansies and your paisley floral decor and your wood paneling, and God bless it, I love the guy, and I know the church that he came into, they have yellow tint on their windows. So when you walk into the auditorium or the sanctuary there, the yellow it fills the room, right? If we're not taking these things in consideration, we're putting up barriers and creating obstacles. Let's remove those. All right, Luke, back to you.
Yeah, to common barriers, just the concept of the perception of irrelevance is, many men feel that church doesn't address their real world challenges. They're walking in and okay, church is for my family, maybe church is for my kids to go to Sunday school and learn about Jesus and sing some songs. Church is for my wife so she can get some more out of the house time. And then there's a concept of I don't need church because church isn't for me. They don't see me. They don't perceive that I even have any needs because I'm supposed to be strong and tough and successful and have it all together. And when the real truth is that's quite opposite for almost any man that I know, because to have it all together means you've got Jesus all together. And while we have Jesus, there is a concept of every one of us still has a need for the community, for the local church.
I could stand here. I could park it here, preacher, for a while, for a number of reasons. One of them I want to share with you. I recently went on a cruise to Jamaica, and while we were there, we did an excursion to go swim with dolphins. And on the bus ride, the tour guide was talking to us and sharing stories with us. And she was saying something about pointing out churches. And she said, everywhere you find a church, you'll find a bar. And she said, because church in Jamaica is for the women and the children, and the men will go to their church. And they say, while the women and children are getting their spirit, the men are also getting their spirits. And the only time men become part of the church or engage or interact with it is when they are older and feeble, and they need someone to support them. Whereas in the younger generation, she said it this way, they're sowing their seed. They're not into monogamy. They are really into whatever else. And I'm afraid that is the direction we could go if we're not careful, because if we're not remaining relevant, then again, why would they be there? Sure, cultural Christianity is a great thing, but what if it's not there? And these guys are busy. And another piece of this is oftentimes the way that pastors are trained for ministry. I started my doctoral research with the idea of researching into the relevance of an MDiv in pastoral ministry. There's great value in understanding theology and reading the Bible, the Greek and Hebrew and these things, and there's a place for that. Pastoring is not just about those aspects, though. It's about being relatable and interacting with people and understanding their struggles and their trials and knowing what they go through. And when a young man who graduates high school and gets a bachelor's in Bible and goes for an MDiv and is now 25, 28 years old going into the ministry, but all he knows is academia, he doesn't understand a 40 to 60 hour work week with a wife and a kid and multiple kids and having to take care of bills and things and a busy schedule. So time constraints really impact men's ability to be a part of men's ministry, which is why it has to be taken into consideration when you schedule an event or you schedule an outing or you even schedule a Bible study, whatever it might be. And then if you're relying on social media or an announcement from the pulpit, you are not going to get as many men show up. A personal invitation will net you a greater return to anything: Bible study, lunch, coffee, men's breakfast, whatever it is, outreach events. It will net you a greater return than any of those others. And this last one that we've got on here to talk about, I got to throw back to Luke, man, because he is the one that definitely helps me in these areas and stuff. And so, Luke, let's talk about the fear of vulnerability.
I believe, based on personal experience and based on the men that I've coached and cried with and the ones I haven't cried with, is that they're the fear of vulnerability, the fear of coming across as weak. Just like Dustin said a minute ago about when he's on the cruise and talking about the only time the men in that culture engage in the church is when they're weak, when they need something. I think the concept is that I'm a tough cowboy. I wear a cowboy hat, boots, and a buckle, and I don't need church because I'm tough and I'm capable. And I want to say this: it is not that you're not tough and capable as a man, or that you're not ministering to individuals that are very tough and capable. But I do believe it comes down to there is a stigma against it in the concept of if that I go to church and put myself in a place of vulnerability, that I am putting myself in a place of need or a place of that I'm not enough. And I believe that it is crucial that we understand that we need to recognize individuals where they are and help them understand that with Jesus, without Jesus, we are not enough. And it's okay to look at church as, rather than a place where weak people go, it's the understanding that I am weak and he is strong. And I think that a lot of times we kind of miss this because as ministry leaders, we like to show that we have it all together. We're in our place. We're dressed right. We're kind of show that our family's right. Where our social media is a highlight reel of all the good things that are going on in our life and how the family's doing devotions and how we spiritually and physically and mentally might have it all together. And yet the reality is that every person I know has some needs that only Jesus and the church can meet. And I know that Jesus is the final answer, but there's a place where God has allowed the church to be in our life for us to be reliant in community on each other. And the opportunity we have to connect with these individuals where they are, to make them understand that vulnerability and being authentic and not having it all together is part of having it all together. It's, you know, it's the, you know, when I am weak, then he is strong concept. Well, if we can model that, hey, we are reliant, not on ourselves, but we're reliant on Jesus. We can help model that vulnerability and authenticity is not weak, it's actually strength, because I'm not acting. I'm real. I'm authentic. But if we can't model that as leaders, we can't model this where we can be vulnerable and share where we're struggling, where we're having a hard time. It's going to be really hard to reach those that are going through that aren't willing to share that, because they think it comes across as weakness, versus understanding that with authenticity and vulnerability is it quite an aspect of strength.
I think there's, something that's just bringing to my mind as you're talking, Luke, and it's, something God's working in my heart right now as I'm seeking to better understand enjoying the journey and not just the outcome. Okay, Luke, you know me, purpose driven. What's the purpose? What is it? Right? We got to get it done.
Right.
I think guys are waiting for that point before they open up. It's like they're done. They are this person they want to be, rather than accepting we're never going to be who we fully are until we are with Christ and we are made like him in heaven one day. So it's about the journey. It's about the process of becoming a man after God. Sounds like a title for a great book. Anyways, but it's about developing and growing into who God has made you to be. And that's what I preach, is what I teach, is what I believe. Can I tell you, God is working my own understanding of, hey, Dustin, like you know this in your mind, but how is it being shown in your heart? And that's something I'm growing in. Like literally this morning in my own prayer life, that was something I was praying to God about. God, help me to enjoy the process more. It's not that I can't go through the process. Help me to enjoy it more. So guys, we've got to enjoy the process of becoming who God's made us to be, and understand it's messy, it's imperfect, it's not social media worthy. You won't be able to tweet about it. I'm sorry, guys, but we're going to have to open up and understand we are all in the same boat. So understand who your guys are, how you can communicate with them best. And if you want to overcome this vulnerability struggle, you as the leader have to decide to open up, be vulnerable, be authentic, be real. Now, I got to make this statement. I'm going to toss it back to Luke because I interrupted him. When you're letting people see you, you want to let them know that you can bleed, but you don't want to bleed all over them. You're not making it about you. You're opening up and being vulnerable and authentic and real for yourself and for them to know it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be weak so Christ can be strong, because until they understand and accept their weakness, they can't see the strength of Christ in their lives. So remember, open up and show them you bleed, but don't bleed all over them.
I think it's crucial that you look at it. If you look at the groups in the world that have the strongest community, some like tribal community, and I'm going to give some, not negative, but some examples of what it should be like. Because if we get compared to being in a spiritual battle, right? We want to put on our spiritual armor and all that stuff, and I think it's a great concept. But if you look at war is made up of a lot of soldiers that have each other's back. And if you look at even our local military, I say local military, but our United States military, when you meet someone who's a part of the military, they have got some comrades in arms that they are tight knit, where they've been through battle together. They have got each other's backs. And even if you look at like even the bikers, and not even the biker gangs, but just people that ride bikes in general. What do you see when you're riding a motorcycle? And I don't ride motorcycles, but I've watched them. Someone's riding a motorcycle and they see someone 4 lanes over passing along. What do they do when they see that other biker coming along? They wave. Bus drivers do the same thing. It's just like this model of almost like, I know what you're going through. I've been where you're at. Like this, it's okay to not know all the nitty gritty details, but know that we've got each other's back. And that's what I think Dustin's talking about. Is like, I don't need to share everything that's going on in my life, my marriage, my heart, to a man in my local church to know that we've got each other's back. I have a man in my church that's just a tremendous, tremendous gem of an individual. And he sees things a lot like I do, where he knows and most people don't see me struggle. Like I'm very, very vulnerable. I like to show where I'm at, but a lot of people don't see that. And so I've got a guy who, even this last one Sunday, he's like, "Hey man, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing all right." He's like, "Oh, the proverbial you're doing all right thing." Okay. How you really doing? Right. And then getting in there, cause he knows there's more going on, because he's in the loop a little bit. And so we talk a little bit and we'll get together later on, but I know I can share everything I'm going through with this individual because I trust him. He trusts me. We've got each other's back. Versus if I've got a new convert in church who's struggling because they just lost their mom, I'm gonna be vulnerable with them, but they're not gonna need to know everything about me to know that I can cry with them. It's okay to cry with someone and not cry on someone. By the way, it's okay to cry on someone when that's the place is, but the concept is just being able to be real and feel what you feel. And most of us men are really not good at feeling what we feel. We're not good at actually processing, like, hey, that hurts, that burns, that I feel that. Well, okay, if you feel it, you probably need to feel it. So take some time to actually feel it, but don't always do that alone. The concept is, I grew up in a world where we can't cry in front of girls. I don't like to cry in front of girls. I just grew up in 10 kids and five brothers. They're all tougher and bigger than I am. And when the girls came over, when our other families came over, we didn't cry. So if you got hurt, you stifled that down pretty good because you weren't allowed to cry in front of girls. Well, you are. When you need to cry, you need to cry. And I'm not asking you to be a crybaby or an emotional mess, but I am saying, hey, we need to deal with the stigma of that and be able to reshape the narrative around men's involvement in church, just based on, it's not about being perfect, but it is about growing together. It is about who's got your back. And we need to take a look at that in a way where we actually talk about it versus just pretending it's not there.
Absolutely. And once you create that environment, it's going to be a healthy environment, and healthy environments attract people. They'll attract healthy people. They'll attract unhealthy people. And the prayer is those that are unhealthy will get healthy, or you will find that they are unaccustomed to what's going on and they will have to depart. But once you have that environment created, now we've got to get guys to the church. We've got to get guys to the events. We got to get guys to the studies, the programs, the whatever it is. So what are ways that we can reach out into the community to engage men that aren't going to church or that aren't attending our ministry and things like that? Whenever I was conducting my doctoral research, I interviewed 5 different men from different levels of men's ministry across the country. And it was great to get their feedback. One of them was a men's pastor down in Tennessee. His name's Dr. Brad White, and he's there in Middle Tennessee. I think Murfreesboro is where he was at. And he and I were talking. He had a thriving men's ministry down there, and I don't just mean it by sheer numbers. I mean by what they were doing, how they were impacting. He had mentioned, and it was corroborated with the other interviews that I conducted, that sports was a fantastic way to get men involved. And you can have basketball games, baseball games, pickleball. I mean, guys like sports, spike ball, tennis, that kind of narrows
fantasy football.
Fantasy football, there you go. But have these opportunities, and they could be for the men in your church to invite other friends to. And their ministry had grown to the place where they had multiple teams. They basically had their own league now, and it was made up of not just church attenders, but it was like the community league was ran through the church. Same concept of like upward basketball and football and soccer for children. They did it at the adult level for men. So sports was a fantastic way of doing that. You can also offer workshops, hosting seminars on topics like leadership, finance, parenting. I'm telling you guys, there's not a single man that's listening to this or that you're ministering to that has not had a thought about how well they're doing as a dad and wouldn't love for someone to come around and tell them, hey, listen, I know you don't have everything right, but you're doing okay. And here's some extra tools for the toolbox. Host a parenting seminar, have a husband seminar, whatever it might be. These are different ideas to help engage those that are out there. And then Luke, I think you've been involved. Maybe it was you. Am I forgetting some service projects?
We do. So I'm employed at a large company, and we do different service projects. And so recently, over the last couple of weeks, I've been in touch with about 19 different cancer charities, and we're monetarily involved in what they're doing, and so that's kind of I'm just trying to give them some money. We're donating to what they're doing, and in each conversation, it comes out as we're working on partnering more than just financially. The conversation is, hey, could you use some extra on-site help? And every single one said yes. In fact, more than we need the money. The money is great. but we need the physical people to come help deliver. So we're creating a product for a cancer patient, whatever. And what is really cool is that we've been able to partner with as a company. Now, how much easier would it be as a church to say, hey, by the way, we're going to do a work day or a work event at this community center and by the way, there's so many out there, to partner with and be the hands and feet of Jesus, serving together, doing something that's impactful for the community. So you're making two statements. One, we love Jesus, and two, we love our community, right? And in the process of it, doing it together, there are so many opportunities to do something physically, get involved together and to make an impact. But the doing it together builds the trust and the bond that a lot of these men are looking for, which is, I just want someone I can trust. I just want someone that gets me, that sees me for who I am, and not for who I feel that I am as the maybe the person who's not enough or doesn't do everything right. But just getting involved in doing something is huge.
Absolutely. There's so many opportunities that are out there. And I'm going to jump ahead in our notes here, Luke, but I want to talk about one that I think is amazing. And you're talking about these other organizations that you can partner with. I was so grateful for, I don't even know where the idea came from, of the Lord. We'll say that, because it was definitely of God. When I got to the church I was pastoring in Bristol, Connecticut for a while, we were working at developing some out-of-the-box outreach initiatives. And what could we do? I arrived in 2019 at that ministry, and then in a few months later, a coffee shop opened downtown. I went, tried it out, met the owner, we talked, different things like that. And then over the course of the next few months, I got to know him more as I would go there once a week, discipling a man. And then we would and then we got to talking, and I asked him, I said, hey man, would you ever let our ministry take over your coffee shop? He's like, what do you mean? I said, we would pay for everyone's drinks for X amount of hours if you let us set up a table and interact with the people. And he said, yeah, that sounds great. Luke, can I tell you, we did that event, and we interacted with over, I think it was 300 and some people that day, 300 or 400. We spent, I think, $356 on drinks. That doesn't sound right. No, I'm sorry. We interacted with like 150 people and spent $300 and some dollars, and didn't just interact with. We got the emails of over 100 and some of them to remain connected to us, because we did an Amazon gift card giveaway. The whole event cost us maybe $380, maybe $390. And we got the personal connections. We got the emails. We saw people come visit, and we were able to keep in touch with them through emails and social media and stuff afterwards. And then we did that event again 2 years later, and came back and did the same thing, and still costs were low, engagement was high. It was a wonderful opportunity. I talked to a friend of mine who loves working out, and I said, hey, why don't you, he's planning a church. I said, why don't you go to a gym and just see if you could set up a table and give away a free membership or something like that. There's so many serving opportunities apart from like Habitat for Humanity or something like that, where men could be involved doing manly things, engaging other businesses and interacting with the community. And I think those are fantastic ways to invite guys into outreach events, and then also to engage guys to come to your church. The most obvious one I think anyone goes to nowadays in 21st century in inviting people to church is social media. Leveraging social media is a fantastic idea. However, you need to know what you're doing. Too many churches' social media pages, I find, are invitations to church, and that's it. That's why I'm a huge fan of a guy we did an interview with, maybe back episode 40s to 50s, somewhere in there, Brady Schreier of Pro Church Tools. He's created Nucleus, he created Rebel Give, and does a lot of work inside the digital communication space for churches. And it has like, I think it's a 5-to-1 or a 6-to-1 ratio. Basically, for every 5 or 6 posts you put up, only one of them should be a reminder or invitation to a service. Let the rest of them be value-adding content. And if you're looking to reach men, let it be value-adding content for men. Now, Luke, you're part of a pretty large ministry there in Texas. What's the social media presence like there? I'm asking this. I actually don't know.
Yeah, I'll say this. I love the church I go to, and I think that they're very good. I think the concept is that if you want to reach someone, you need to meet their needs where they're at. Yeah. So if you're trying to do a social media that's hyping up a church service, that's great. But if someone doesn't think they need a church service, it's not gonna land, right? Versus if you're saying, hey, if you need prayer, or you need, support, you need, counseling there, whatever it is. And so our church media team, and I don't have anything to do with this. I'll give them kudos. They're very good at connecting, and their posts, like, they do share some event type things, but they set it up as an event, like, come to our Christmas program, and they do a local event. And so people from all over the community come to the event, because we don't promote it as a church event. It is a church promoting it, but it's a Christmas tree lighting. It's a church that's doing it, but it's a Christmas musical program, right? But they're really good at putting content out consistently that has to do with where people are at spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and more of like a reminder to check in with your relationship with God versus check in at church, right? So I'll say this, that there's, your social media is going to be a funnel to get people to potentially see you, to help your brand. But when it comes down to the real connection, it's going to be, how are you addressing their needs? And if you don't know what their needs are, you must assess that first. And can you meet their needs? Can you add value and be able to deliver that? And sometimes that's online, but most of the time it is a venue that you say earlier, you said, hey, if you do a leadership seminar or a financial seminar, those are value adds. So that's, hey, by the way, we're doing a financial budgeting thing at the church at this time. I'm going to promote that on social media, because there's a lot of people that I can directly connect with that need that. They know it's a need. Now I'm meeting the need for where they're at. And now I'm getting them through the doors of the church, maybe not even at the church, but just through that connection, through that social media post and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I love that. I asked the question. I'm like, I hope they're doing well, because if not, this is about to go south.
Oh yeah. Well, I assume they're doing well. We're I don't know if we're doing well. I'd say that we're doing well because, God is growing the church, but the team themselves really do focus on
phenomenal
content,
to add value, stuff like that.
So
yeah. I absolutely love that. We talked earlier about creating that great environment and different things like that, and going into the creating the space for people to feel comfortable, and that can be done in the small ways. Again, what's it smell like? And what does it look like? How does it feel when you walk into a room? And I know, guys, I think we neglect this because we're just looking at getting stuff done, and we neglect the feeling. However, if you go ask, in my experience, if you go ask a lady to tell you how it feels walking into a room, she might be able to describe this better than you can, or you may be someone who's learned this and it can do it great. That's fine. But asking, how does it feel when I walk into a room? Does it feel stuffy? Does it feel academic? Does it feel like it's a place for women? Does it feel like it's a place for men? What's the feeling that you have when you walk in there? That is an aspect of it, and creating that space with the practical things. But there's some, I guess they're tangible, but also intangible things that we have to consider when making men feel welcome. One of the first things is your leadership team. Is your leadership team made up of just young guys, just older guys, or have you been able to include a good mix? Now, some of you are listening, you say, Dustin, I'm the only men's leader at my ministry.
I am the leadership team.
That's it. I am it, and I must be like Paul and be all things to all men. And you know what? In the 21st century, you can. So enjoy that. I don't know how you'll figure it out, but hey. But no, so if it's just you, that is what it is. But are you raising up men that look like you, talk like you, think like you, smell like you? Or are you seeking to develop men that are from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different experiences? Having diverse leadership can help relate to a diverse group of men. And maybe you're in a place right now where it can't happen. Listen, pray, ask God to send laborers for the harvest, and develop those leaders. And again, make it diverse, because heaven's going to be quite diverse when we get up there. Then there's interest-based groups. We've talked about this recently. I think we've talked about this recently.
Yeah, we covered this last session we did.
Okay, I thought so. I thought I'd seen it before, so I won't jump back into this one anymore. But just to say, you can have different interests. You're not excluding people. You're just creating an opportunity for people to connect over something they enjoy. Car enthusiast, hiking, various things of that nature. And then we've got a great coaching program, the Men's Ministry Growth Accelerator. It's part of our Men After God membership. You can go to menaftergod.net, check that out. And I was putting content together for that, finishing it up, and making sure we're good on it. Actually, before Luke got on here today, about feedback and data and understanding what we're hearing, what we're seeing, and how to improve. One of the greatest feedbacks that I've gotten from men in ministry is the disconnection, not just to church, but between the generations. And I think there's a good answer for that, Luke. And I think you're seeing what I'm seeing. So tell us, what do you think a good answer for that generation gap or the disconnection between the members of the men's ministry could be?
Yeah, I think that when we hear the word mentorship, there's a picture that pops up in our mind, and either you're all about it or you're all against it. Like I almost believe like you're like, hey, I'm all for mentorship. I love it. I see it. It makes sense. Or there's a tremendous like almost misnomer about what it is. And so we become reactionary toward it. Well, I can't do it, or I don't have the men in my church, or I don't have, and you think there's a leadership context of mentorship. Mentorship is somebody that's ahead of somebody, helping them get to where they need to go. Spiritual mentorship is one of the most diversified ways to mentor in a positive way, meaning that people that are spiritual mentors, you're not mentoring them into a career that there's a niche career. It is spiritual growth. And somebody who is more spiritual or more mature as a Christian can mentor almost anybody who is less mature as a Christian. I'm not trying to compare, but what I am saying is you say, well, I've only been saved a couple of years and I'm barely through discipleship myself. Then you can mentor the person who hasn't started discipleship yet. You know enough to know, okay, I can teach someone to pray. I can teach someone to be disciplined in their devotions. I can give them resources. So a lot of people think mentorship's like the Yoda of like they got to have a spiritual Yoda who can talk just right and just kind of guide them along and keep them laughing or whatever.
And you must have your hair fixed,
yes,
just like Yoda. Okay,
yeah,
that's the requirement. Yes,
but that's not what mentorship is. It's almost the concept is one beggar telling another beggar where to find bread. Like it's just like, hey, I got this gold nugget here. You've got to come get it too. And the concept of, hey, there's an unlimited amount of resources in the depth of the Word of God and spiritual growth. If you're growing, somebody else can grow just as much with you, alongside you. And so being able to pair maybe new members with seasoned ones, pairing younger men with older men, or older men with newer Christians that are older, and your ladies in the church. There's some older ladies in the church that can mentor young mothers, and there's young mothers who can mentor young teenage girls. And you can literally have this connection and an appropriate balance of, one person mentoring another person and everybody mentoring somebody. And you say, well, I've got young Christians in my church. Cool. That's great. You are a lucky church, because there's a lot of churches that don't have young Christians in their church, and they wish they did, because they have a dying church, because they're not getting any new people, because they're not willing to reach out and connect with in a mentorship relationship, saying, hey, I'm not perfect, but I want to be with you as we grow together.
Man, value. That's what Luke just provided. Value. And I think what's so important of what he said is determining, identifying, and defining what mentorship, what discipleship is, and telling your men and then teaching your men. Too many of us hear it and have this vague idea. And he did a great job covering that, man. I absolutely love it. Let's start bringing this home and land the plane, bro. Whenever you guys hear this, you need to walk away, especially on our Friday episodes. You need to walk away and think, man, what can I do? So put some things into action. You need to assess your ministry. Take some time this week and evaluate your current engagement levels and any gaps that you have. How are men attending the Bible study hour? Have you asked them why they're not? How are men at Men's Life Group? What was the attendance like at our last ladies' brunch with bacon, or men's breakfast, as some would call it? What was the attendance like at our men's event? Who didn't come? Why didn't they come? Did we ask them? Go assess your ministry, and then develop a plan and by setting specific, measurable goals for outreach and inclusion. Who are you going to invite? How are you going to invite them? What are you going to do in the space in order to make it welcoming and inviting? Is your content going to be relatable to the audience that you're seeking to reach? Get a team together. Guys, I can't stress this enough. This is my thing. Build a team. Build a team. Build a team. I can't accomplish anything without a team around me. And I'm so grateful for the team I've got, and I hope you will get a team around you. Even one. 2 is better than 1. You get 3, get 3. You get 4, get 4. Whoever. Build a team. Then communicate clearly what you're wanting to accomplish. Make sure you have a compelling message. Speak to the men's needs. And when you're going out and outreach and telling them about your men's ministry, know your mission and vision. Know what you're about. And don't just think about it in spiritual terms. I was coaching a guy the other day, and I was asking him about the purpose of his men's ministry. And he's telling me, like, well, we want to develop men to be spiritual leaders inside the home. Like, okay, cool. What's that mean? And he's like, well, they lead spiritually. I know. What's that look like? Okay, well, they're going to be praying with their kids. They're going to be leading in devotions. If they can sing, they might have worship time. And I'm talking about, like, listen, those are all great and wonderful things. But if you communicate that to someone who doesn't know Jesus, what's it matter? What's the point of that? And then he had to think through and came to the place. He goes, well, I mean, if you do that stuff, your family's better off. I think your relationship with your wife is better. I think your relationship with your children is better. And I said, okay, look, in your context, if that's the method you want to use in order to accomplish it, that's fine. But don't communicate the method you're using. Communicate the outcome you're promising, and tell them, hey, being part of our men's ministry leads to guys having happier homes and a better relationship with their wife, and things of that nature. But communicate clearly, and then follow up. Always follow up, and not just ask how it's going or how it went. Follow up with people who attended events to invite them back. Follow up with people for lunch and coffees, and to develop the relationship. Because here's the truth, guys. We can argue it, we can preach against it, we can get upset about it, but the truth of the matter is, the men, especially people who don't know Jesus, are looking at your men's ministry and looking at your church, and they are asking this question: what's in it for me? Man, we can hate that all we want, or we can answer it and give them what they want to show them what they need.
I think it's crucial that we look at this. Like, we got some practical things of, hey, learn a little bit, do a little bit. And oftentimes we look at these things, especially if you were a one leader church where you are the pastor and you have some lay staff, or maybe you have a deacon's board or whatever, and you have a few people. When you're building the team and you're like, man, I don't have anybody to build the team with. I barely have, Joe who can't sing and Bill who doesn't even dress like he's supposed to for church, right? Sometimes availability is the best ability in building a team, and start with what you have. God will do the rest. It is not your church. It is not your ministry. It is God's ministry. So you do what you're supposed to do, sow what you're supposed to sow, and then ultimately God brings the harvest. And so when you're looking at, like, hey, all of this, don't let what you cannot do keep you from doing what you should do. So you say, well, I can't do all of this. These are some great stuff. And if I had the budget and the ministry, I would do all of it. That's great. I wish you would, I wish you could, but you can't. So what's the one thing you're going to do today? So if that means, hey, I'm going to start the assessment and get the feedback, or maybe I'm going to start doing the personal invitations and just start talking to some men about what would be some needs that I could be a part of meeting. Look at it, because the question is being asked, what's in it for me? And by the way, you've gone to events and ask the same question. So don't judge them for asking that question. That's the human nature of what we do. And I think Dustin's got a great thought on this about really how churches are built. A lot of times we build them on all these things. Dustin, what's your thought on this one? How is the ministry built? How is the church built?
Luke, one of the problems with developing men for ministry through academia and things of that nature, and putting the focus, because guys, I felt this in ministry so many times. Am I in ministry or am I in program management? Am I in ministry or I am in event coordination? Am I an event planner or am I a pastor? Like, what am I doing here? Guys, we can all fall into this trap of putting such a focus on the program, but you can't build a church on programs. You build it on people. You have to put a focus on the people you're serving, what their needs are, and meeting their needs. Mm-hmm. There was a preacher from old who said it this way: I won't build my ministry on my people. I won't build my ministry through my people. I will build my people through my ministry. It's the same concept. You can't build a church on programs. You build it on people. God's growing his church. And let's take away the Americanized idea of church. He's not growing his building. He's growing his people.
That's right.
How are you a part of that process? Guys, I hope you'll take this and create an opportunity for men to have genuine connections in your community, and use this as a way to get guys into your ministry, creating that space for them to love Jesus, to know Jesus, and to grow closer to him as you all grow together. If you haven't connected with us at facebook.com/group/menaftergod, we'd love to have you in there. Make sure to give us a follow at facebook.com/menaftergod podcast to stay up to date on all of the information that we've got going out here. And then our website that is launched this month, menaftergod.net. We'd love for you to go check that out, learn a little bit more about us and the special offers we've got going on for partnering with us in membership to gain access to our Men's Ministry Growth Accelerator. You could potentially get a free DISC assessment for 8 members of your staff. You've got access to the ability to bring a church planner or a missionary on to help grow, develop, and revitalize their men's ministry just because you partnered with us, and then so much more. I love doing this. I'm thankful to have Luke doing it with me. I'm so glad to talk about the topic today, and I can't wait until our next episode, not just next week. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Men After God podcast. We hope today's discussion has encouraged and equipped you on your journey. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, comments, or would like to partner with us, please reach out at support@menaftergod.net. Stay connected with our community by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/menaftergodpodcast. For deeper engagement, join our group at facebook.com/groups/menaftergod and connect with other men pursuing God's heart. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more men striving to live faithfully. Until next time, stay strong in the faith and continue pursuing after God.